Hi, I'm Jake Ray, and today on the Student Slant, we talked to Ashley Nelson, Lantern TV station manager, and Sheridan Hendrix, John R. Aller, special projects reporter, about women in journalism and mentors.
During the 2016 football season, I was the sports director, and there's always little things that happen, but the biggest thing that sticks out in my mind was in Phoenix during the bowl game, or during the playoff game when Ohio State was there. After the game, it was an open locker room, so I had credentials to go in there just as my male counterparts did. And when I attempted to go in, the guy at the door looked at my pass and said, "You can't come in." I was like, "Well, you just let my assistant sports director Colin in, and he has the same pass that I do." And he's like, "You can't come in." And I was like, "You're going to have to bring your manager out here because it's my job to be in there, and I'm going to be in there one way or another. So let's get this show moving." And eventually, after about half an hour of arguing with people outside this window, they're like, "Okay, you can go in," which was ridiculous to say the least. I'm Ashley Nelson.
I'm Sheridan Hendrix.
I'm Zach Varda.
And I'm Jake Ray, and this is the Student Slant.
Ashley, you've done a lot of work with sports journalism in particular, and I think anybody who follows journalism on Twitter or wherever, you see sports journalism was where it's the worst. I think one of the most shocking examples was, I think a lot of people saw that Sarah Spain video a year or so ago where people read the comments that are left under her tweets. So I'm kind of wondering what your experience has been with sports journalism as a woman.
Yeah, I mean, you hear about stuff all the time. Like there's something as small as the Cam Newton situation where he, thought it was really funny that a woman was asking about routes, which is entirely ridiculous because most sports journalists inside those rooms have played just as much football as each other. Like the men in the room, the women in the room, most of them don't know anything other than what they've seen or read. So it's not like there are athletes that segue into being sports journalists, but it's not the norm. So stuff like that is pretty dehumanizing. Covering Ohio State football, it wasn't bad because the people at the helm, like Jerry Emig, are pretty good about smashing that stuff down. But I worked with Alexa, who was our photo editor of the year, and it's just really easy to be looked over and literally physically moved out of the way. One of my favorite things is when ESPN was on the sideline and they needed their camera guy to be where I'm standing. They won't ask, they will move you. They will forcibly move you. And that mostly just happens to that mostly happens to the women on the sideline because it's a lot easier to I guess intimidate them, or at least they think they are, although Alexa didn't really put up with it too much. She was really great dealing with all that. But yeah, it's little dehumanizing things that happen pretty consistently.
There are a lot of pretty amazing women's sports journalists, though. You think of Jamel Hill, Sarah Spain, Kate Fagan.
Holly Rowe is one of my favorite ones.
Holly
she's
Rowe's,
incredible.
Yeah, she's fantastic. Is there anyone in particular you look up to, or that you think have set a really badass example?
I mean, I love Holly Rowe. She's absolutely incredible. She has a background and a story beyond sports. But I mean, Nicole Kraft covers at CBJ here for the AP, and she one thing she says because she runs Association of Women in Sports Media with me, and one of her things is always aim higher. She says that to every single person because she will go around the room and be like, "What are our goals?" And unless we're all saying we want to anchor something on ESPN, she goes aim higher. So to have that thought in the back of your mind every day at such a level that influences everything you do, all of my journalism experience has come from this institution. So to have someone there who just refuses to let you settle is pretty incredible as well.
Sheridan, I know you did an internship at the Dispatch, and you've also worked a lot with Ohio State Com and just doing journalism here in the same way Ashley has. What are some of the, issues you've come across or challenges you've come across in your time as a journalist?
Yeah, I think one thing that I have unfortunately experienced the most is older male journalists intentionally or maybe unintentionally kind of looking down or micromanaging female journalists. I think I've seen that in a few different places, but one thing that I noticed over the summer at the dispatch is, and I didn't realize it while I was there until I was talking with another male intern afterwards, but there was one person in particular who would make his rounds to the female editors, or who would make his rounds to the female journalists that were interning that summer and talk with them about their weekend and what they did and what they did last night and how their stories were going. And I just kind of took it as, oh yeah, that's, it's just casual conversation, whatever, doesn't really bother me. But then when I was talking with another male intern afterwards, after our internship, he was like, yeah, he never did that with the male interns. Like, I was like, oh, that's, I wonder why. He was like, it's because he's micromanaging you guys. Like, it's not because he actually cares about how your weekend was or what you did last night or how your interview went with this one person. It was because he doesn't, trust you, or he doesn't think that you are doing as much as you want. And, you take that with a grain of salt, but it still kind of sticks with you like, huh, that kind of sucks. Like, I'm here to do my job, and I feel like I'm doing my job well, just as well as anyone else. But to, in the back of your mind, always feel like you're being questioned, or always feel like you have to prove yourself a little bit more than the other interns that you're with, male or female, it kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like working at a student paper now with younger male journalists, do you see a change in the way it's acting in the newsroom, and you're not seeing as much as that? Or do you feel like it's still pretty existent in the newsroom?
I think specifically for the Lantern newsroom, I feel really, really fortunate for all the people that we get to work with. I think, Jacob Myers, Owen Doherty, Kevin Stankiewicz, like all of these guys that we work with on a regular basis, they are awesome. And I've worked with Jacob on, a number of things, and he lets me go take pictures of sports sometimes and help him out with stuff. And I've never felt like, oh, she's a woman, so we need to like take care of her more, or, oh, she's a woman, so we need to like teach her how to do these things. Like, I feel like one thing I really love about a college newsroom is that it's really collaborative and that we're all on the same playing field, even if people have had maybe different internships or different experiences or different opportunities to report different stories. And it doesn't really matter what you've reported and what you've had the opportunity to do, because we're all still in the same newsroom. We're all still working for the same goal. These guys are awesome.
We also have some badass women on staff.
Yeah,
as well.
Badass women on staff.
Some pretty incredible people.
I think it's pretty amazing at Ohio State and at the Lantern that like you said, we have badass women on staff. I've been involved with Lantern for a year. The first time I got involved, our editor-in-chief was a woman. Nicole Kraft is like the persona non grata here. Like, she's an immovable object, And so I think it's pretty amazing that the one we have here. But obviously, on a larger scale, the problems aren't going away. We hope that like we stem it at like a lower level. But I guess what are things that men in journalism, or just men in general, do that you think maybe they don't even notice that like they need to cut, or like you would tell them like, hey, you need to watch when you're doing this?
Great question. I guess, like, at least in my experience, like, the micromanaging aspect of things, I think that's annoying for anyone, but I think especially for women it can be frustrating, because sometimes you'll see your male coworkers, go a whole day without ever having an editor come up to them or anyone ask them about their stories, and they just get to kind of work uninterrupted. And, it's not all the time, but I think women can sometimes get the raw end of that deal, and people just coming up and checking in on them and seeing how things are going. And I think a lot of it is well-intentioned, but that it can sometimes come off as, I need to make sure that you're doing your job. I need to make sure that you're doing your job well, so that you have to work twice as hard to make sure that you can actually get your job done.
I mean, I've been really lucky that the men that I work with are all, for the most part, the men that I've worked with have all been pretty incredible. When I worked in a newsroom freshman year, there were only like 2 women like in head roles there. So at the like bare minimum, I had no idea like what, and I had just started getting into journalism. My major wasn't even changed at that point. I didn't have any role models to like look up to. I didn't know how to act. So if you don't have strong women in the newsroom, it's going to be hard to like navigate that.
I think something too that and I don't know if this totally answers your question, but I think something too that I was talking with someone over the summer about mentorship and having mentors and having people that you can really look up to and go to and ask questions in your career, especially early in your career. And I'm a huge proponent of mentorship, and I think that everyone should have someone that they're able to look up to and go and ask questions when you feel that you don't know what you're doing. And I think something that I realized over the summer is that it's a lot harder for women to have mentors in newsrooms sometimes, because to get ahead, often you need to have a mentor, you need to have someone getting in there for you. And for a young female journalist to have an older male mentor, it weirds people out sometimes, even if the relationship is totally professional and totally in the workplace. People still look at it as being weird, and that can totally screw over women sometimes, because people look at it as, ooh, she's talking to the older guy, or she's talking with him, and it's just it's an unfortunate stereotype that women get pegged with, and I think it really hurts female journalists often. I've been super, super fortunate with all the mentors that I have, male and female, here at Ohio State and at the Dispatch, and I would hope that no one would look at any of those relationships, out of context, which would really suck.
Yeah, speaking of mentors, we mentioned her already, but Nicole Kraft, Ashley mentioned too, and she said it in the class I help her TA. Someone said they wanted to just be like a sideline reporter for ESPN, and she said aim higher. And I don't know, that still kind of stuck with me, that aim higher. And what does that kind of mean to you guys to have someone like Nicole here at Ohio State as like a mentor? Because she's like a mentor to all of us, obviously, to show you that like you can be so extremely successful, even if you're a woman, even if you're anyone.
Yeah.
So I guess back to my original question, what is it like, I guess, having someone like Nicole Kraft here to look up to at Ohio State?
I mean, it's everything.
It's kind of like one of the best things ever.
Yeah, I mean, because not only does Nicole Kraft tell us that, she tells everyone that. So then there's people like Summer Cartwright, who's our campus editor, who thinks that exact same way and like will lift us up as well. And like that's one thing that I think we've been all pretty good at. Like Sheridan, myself, Summer, like Wrist Twig is incredible. Like just the ability to like pull all of ourselves up, and it all stems from people like Nicole, who even give us the frame of mind to think that way, because there's so many people who, once again, like dehumanize us and make it really easy to think that we're only set to these boxes and you can't surpass them, you can't break out of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Nicole has been a crusader for the journalism program at Ohio State, and I think that's something that is going to go down like in Ohio State School of Communication, Ohio State history, as like, wow, she really was a huge part of changing this program. And I think specifically for the women here who are trying to get into this career, it can be really hard. And I think to see someone who has had so many different roles in this field, she worked on The Hill, she was an editor at a wine magazine out in California, she's covered sports, she's done magazine journalism, she does horse racing, she does just about everything. So I think I have been really grateful for Nicole for a number of reasons, but specifically for the people that she has introduced us to. She works so hard to make sure that her students here all get to meet people in this field that are going to be able to help us. Mike Wagner and Holly Zachariah at the Columbus Dispatch are two people that I really look up to, and two people that I have gone to for a lot of advice. And I would never have met them had I not been in Nicole's classes. And she works really hard to make sure that we get these opportunities to meet people that are just going to push us forward. It's unparalleled.
One of the things that's taking up a lot of news space right now is the Time's Up movement, which a lot of people kind of associate with Hollywood, but it's hit sports, it's hit the journalism industry. Some notable publications have been in it, and obviously journalists are the ones reporting on all this. So from your guys' perspective, what is it kind of like watching what you already know existed, but then a bunch of people being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this is happening. But women are like, no, like we knew this was happening. You guys are just finally paying attention.
It's been interesting to talk with older women about this, because it's not, I mean, none of this was a surprise. Like, everyone knew it was happening, like you said, and I think it's kind of funny in a sad sense that it's, people start coming forward and people start getting taken seriously, and then it's like, oh my gosh, we had no idea. It's like, really? You had no idea? Like, you were part of the people perpetuating this problem, whether you realized it or not. I feel excited to see like what's going to happen in the future now that all of this stuff is coming to the forefront, because I think it's just going to continue to make workplaces more safe for us and, for all people, not just for women. Like, men get sexually harassed too, men get like sexually abused as well. And
exactly what you said. I think we're coming on the cusp of something that's going to benefit us greatly, and we owe such a debt to the people that have gotten us here, to the people who continue to speak out. And it's also like a responsibility now to continue acting the way that we do, and like aiming higher as well, to ensure that like all the work that's been done isn't reversed or forgotten.
yeah, I think that's a huge part of it, is like not just letting this be something that fades into the background, but like letting it still be something that is causing change and is making people think about things. It would suck if all of these really strong individuals came forward and were so courageous to share like things that have happened to them that should have never happened, and people had ignored them to continue to ignore it in the future.
And I feel like such a responsibility now too,
Yeah.
to younger journalists who are about to come up, and also to just, I feel such a responsibility to continue speaking about it, because there are people who harass people, and there are people who enable it, who just sit idly by and don't do anything. And you can't be either one of those people, because then you're complicit in all of the things that cause the Time's Up movement.
Ashley mentioned like teaching the younger people coming in. What is their feeling like stepping in and like basically becoming like a Nicole Kraft, like a mentor to someone else?
I mean, like, I feel like a lot of us have done that. That something that's happened over the past couple of years in this newsroom specifically is mentorship, like you talked about. I mean, I think you two could probably speak to the mentorship from Summer, and I could speak to the mentorship from the people that came before me. And I hope that there are, I mean, I can't speak for other people, but I try my best to make people feel welcome, and if they need help, if they need anything, to be there for them and to teach anything that I know. I mean, I'm not a savant about anything, but I'm more than willing to talk to anyone about anything, and that's something that's really changed in the last couple of years, because I've seen this newsroom change 3 times, and to see the staff that will come in next year, it's such a point of pride, because you know that it's like a collaborative effort to get everyone ready and to hand off the baton. So that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think moving forward, like, our industry gets a lot of flack, and it's under attack in a lot of ways from people from the outside. So I think now is the time where we need to be stronger, and we need to be more prepared than ever to do our jobs well and to do our jobs right. And I think mentorship is only going to continue to like make that what it should be and what it should look like in the future. I'm really excited to be able to come back and help in any way possible. I know Nicole has already got me for life to come back and talk to future news classes after I graduate. My friend uses this term experience debt, of like when you've had such a positive experience at something that you feel like you need to give back to it. You feel indebted to it, and I feel like that's how I feel about Ohio State School of Journalism and feel about the Lantern. So it's an exciting role to get to like move forward and be a mentor and be someone that can actually help out.
Thanks for joining us on the Student Slant. Be sure to check back next week for more student perspective.